Armada Book 2 Chapter 3 The Listons Part 2. Engines are operating at 90%. Commander Mercon, a hat-wearing Liston says. How long until we reach the planet, First Officer Harona? Mercon asked with his eyes fixed on the screen in front of him. In 3 hours, we can see them on screen. Harona answered. The commander I believe is a female while Harona is a male since he wears a hat. And his voice is more masculine. Ellie said. Nobody was answering. They all seemed to know that besides being confusing, the intel is useless for the moment. Olive started to show various scenes from various parts of the ship. They were glued to the mess hall scene. They eat with utensils. That thing looks like a long fork like the ones we use in barbecues. He is cutting that meat-like thing with a flat knife. Roger noted. I think it's fascinating to just watch. How are our people doing? Are they all watching this? Andrew asked. 24% are watching. Olive answered. So few are interested. Ellie said. 32% are sleeping, 15% are on training exercise. The people are doing a lot of things. The people watching are waiting to be deployed and they are studying the situation. It's like Earth around the Civil War era where people wear formal uniforms and mixed with the industrial era. Roger said. But these guys are flying a spaceship. Andrew said. They also cook their food and have colored drinks. And look at their manners, they eat as if they are dining in a fine dining formal restaurant. Gadden said. It's like watching a human space comedy movie. Ellie noted. That's it. It's like watching a human movie satire only they look like small bofings. Andrew said laughing. What planet are they talking about, Olive? Ellie asked. They plan to go to this planet. I have sent 2 probes to the planet. We will have ground visuals in 18 minutes. She showed a hologram of the planet. This is very interesting. It looks like it has a lot more water than Earth, but the land is more contiguous. Roger said. When Roger looked around, Ellie and Andrew had already left and Gadden was following them. Where are you going? He ran to follow them. It's lunch. Gadden said. The officers' mess hall was particularly full. It seems like everybody suddenly got hungry. Even the counter was filled up with chefs where normally there is 1 or even 2 staff at the back of the counter. The lines are long and packed. Ellie, why do you think there are so many people here? Andrew asked. I think people are getting their fill anticipating a long mission. Some of the taggers and hackers that just got back are here. Roger said. I must agree with that observation. One thing about our people is that they anticipate our decisions. They expect things to be done this way or that way. And since they know how we operate and how they have operated, they pretty much see the writings on the wall as we see them or maybe even before. Ellie said. Well, Max behave exactly how Ellie said. With telepathic communications, they pretty much know the next move. And besides, Olive helps them understand and they often ask Olive what's next. Gadden said. I guess Olive really takes care of our people in understanding their missions as well. Andrew said. They were just on the second plate when Olive appeared. She showed ground video of the planet. Andrew, there are humans on the planet and the Listons are their masters. The mess hall suddenly became quiet except for personnel opening their tablets and taking a closer but nonetheless quiet look. Keep calm everyone, especially you, Ellie and Roger. Let this go. Andrew said. There was a scramble of personnel in the mess hall as if the ship suddenly went on red alert without the regular red alert sound, and they are expected in their battle stations. They walked briskly to the bridge and Olive showed several large screens with several areas on the planet while they were walking. At the bridge, Olive started, there are 18 million humans on the planet. They are at early medieval-like technological state when the Listons came over. The Max, Marines, and Norsets are deployed to tag the Listons first, then the humans, and hack into their ground data centers. 85,000 will all be deployed within the hour. They have pretty much divided the area into grids and assigned the needed personnel. Roger said. Olive, tell all the personnel going down to be extra calm and careful. No aggressive moves whatsoever, please. Andrew said. I can sense them also, General Man. Ellie said. I want to mix in with the humans below. Andrew said. We would need the chameleon device and a language translator. Ellie added. Ellie, the translators will be done after 2 hours. They are still collecting information. Olive, can you look for a resistance movement? People grouped in hidden places, people in prisons. Roger said. They have a very large prison camp. Olive showed them a prison surrounded by forest on 3 sides and a lake on 1. It has more than 40,000 inmates. The walls are all electrified, they are given little food and batches of 100 are herded into classrooms and taught something every 2 hours. Andrew pointed at the hollow, that's where we will know what they want. Ellie, Gadden, Roger, let's beam at the back of the class. Olive dispatched teams into the other classrooms and areas of interest. Here are your translators. You can only understand the Liston language but not the humans' language, Olive said. The team found themselves at the back of a classroom crowded with almost 100 humans, all seated with 12 guards around the area. The people were unusually taller than the average, even the women were taller and bulkier. They were wearing leather tops and some were wearing brown and dark-colored woven rags. Some were wearing leather trousers. Even the women were wearing leather trousers and rag pants. The Listons were immaculately dressed and very neat. It was a wooden room, rough wooden floors and walls. The chairs were long benches and they all sat quietly. A Liston teacher in full uniform is in front of the group, on an elevated platform, and behind the teacher was a white wall with some writings and a picture. "Praise be to our Lord Sarano, true God of the world," the teacher said as he bowed in front of a relief form of a Liston hung on the front wall of the class. Teacher added and motioned the class to stand. "Before we begin, let us all recite our morning prayer." The class stood and, "Sarano is our one true God, creator, and destroyer of all things. We believe, therefore we are saved. Non-believers will die. The Listons are the hand of God Sarano and they are our friends and they will guide us to the truth and eternal salvation." Olive appeared beside the team. "Andrew, there is something you need to see. Ellie, Roger, you stay here for a few more minutes. Don't kill anybody, okay?" Andrew whispered. Andrew was back on his bridge and on a floating large screen he saw a group of humans sitting on the ground with hands tied in front of them. They are all tied together by a bigger rope. I believe they are next to be executed. I saw the first group enter this building and they were all killed by poison gas. The other prisoners are now carrying the dead bodies out and dumping the dead in this pit half a mile from the building here. A screen appeared showing a dumping ground for dead people. Andrew was quiet. Then he quietly said, "Get Ellie and Roger and Gadden back here. Olive, can you make sure that the chemical machine does not work from now on? Make it look like somebody messed up with it. I can beam a metal part into the motor. That will work." "The Listons are a bunch of religious fanatics," Ellie commented. "It's like the conquistadors of old, 3 centuries ago." Roger added. "But these are more brutal, like the Nazis in your Second World War." Gadden said. "How long before we finish tagging, Olive?" Andrew asked. 3 hours or so. There are humans in the forests and mountains hiding. Maybe that's where the resistance is," Roger said. "There are large groups of humans in this part of the mountain that is so remote, the Listons cannot possibly get to them unless by air. Maybe that's why the military ship is coming over. To bomb the rebels," Andrew said. "Can you get some visuals of the human groups?" Roger asked. Olive moved the probe to the area and focused their view. Now they can see them and they are holding Liston weapons, bows and arrows, swords, shields, and spears. "Why are the Listons in the planet?" Ellie asked. "I believe the answer is on that screen," Gadden said, pointing at one hollow. They looked at the hollow screen and it showed human laborers mining for something. They are mining an ore they call Sarantami or Rock of God Sarano. It's slightly radioactive and they use the rock as a power source similar to enriched uranium. They are also mining for metals, diamond, and precious gems," Olive said. "Why are there no transport ships?" Andrew asked. "They are stockpiling their output in these warehouses. But there are 2 large transport ships parked at the other side of the planet," Olive explained. "Can you scan the rebel groups for the leaders?" Andrew asked. "According to the Norsets, this person seems to be a leader. He is going around talking to people and always with at least 3 people following his movements," Olive said. "The Norsets and Max have completed their hack into the Liston ship data that they downloaded," Gadden said. "And?" Andrew asked. Olive answered, "They have transported humans back to their home planet as slave workers. According to the Liston ship data systems, a total of 10 transport ships full of human prisoners have arrived in the home planet. The royal family were invited to their planet but were enslaved the moment they boarded the ships. I believe these are the humans that played along with their religion and are now being transported to work as slaves," Gadden said. "So, the 2 transport ships are out there collecting humans?" Ellie asked. "Several MAC teams have left for the 2 transport ships. We will have videos in a few moments." Jackson beamed to the bridge. "Sir, I would like to leave for the Liston home world." "You need a partnership," Andrew said. "Captain Ono will be my partner," Jackson said. "Okay, but leave the probes at the correct distances so we can communicate. And make sure you have the needed men, bring a lot of taggers. Some of your people are still on the ground." Jackson nodded. "We will leave as soon as we have the needed personnel." "That's a go, Axel. Good luck," Andrew said and Jackson saluted. "The human language translators are finished. Here are the chameleon devices and translators. Olive said and beamed the devices on a table near the team. Let's beam in near that leader in this part of the forest near this river. Let's appear as stragglers wanting to join the rebels. We need some spears, shields, and swords. Olive, Andrew said. Ellie, Gadden, and Roger got their devices and got their weapons. They tucked in their plasma pistols in their shoulder straps. Roger has 2 pistols under his 2 armpits while the rest had only 1 pistol. Olive, can you steal some Liston weapons with ammunitions, enough that 4 people can carry and bury them near the river here? Roger said. Olive dispatched some Max and Norsets with the human language translators and listen in on their conversations. Ellie said. The 4 were beamed near a river. They walked into the forest and after a few yards Andrew signaled them to stop and sit. They sat pretending to rest. Olive told them a group was coming their way. As expected, they were found by rebel scouts. Rebel, welcome my brothers, come let's go. The rebel looked around and appeared very anxious that the enemy might appear any second. They followed the rebel walking for 1 hour or so through thick forest. They reached a set of shacks made of leaves and trees, untrimmed but enough to provide some shelter to 5 or 6 persons. Shortly after they arrived, they were introduced to the rebel leader. Rebel, this is Brother Thomason, our beloved leader. Brother Thomason, we found them in the forest resting. I see you have weapons with you, Thomason said. He was wearing a brown rag shirt and leather pants, a tall muscular guy with long black wavy hair. He had a Liston pistol tucked into his pants. His face looked like a comedian's, with a constant smile sometimes wry sometimes obvious with his lips. Ironic for a serious man. Andrew started, we are glad you found us Brother Thomason, my name is Andy's son, this is Eli's son, Roger's son, and Gadinson. You don't look like brothers and sister? Thomason said. These are my brothers and sister, we have the same dead parents. Ellie looked at Andrew, puzzled. We stole some Liston weapons and we buried them near the river. Roger said. Let's get them, we need weapons, we cannot win this if we only have swords and spears. Thomason said and motioned for some warriors to join them. Roger led them to the spot and reached the place Olive directed him, through his implant, after more than an hour. He and Andrew started digging. In a few minutes, the weapons are taken out of the hole and cleaned. The rebels were obviously happy and offered one to Andrew. I will fight with my sword if it's okay with you, brother. Thomason smiled and hugged them. They got my 2 brothers and father and brought them out into the air in one of the large birds. They also got my wife, sister, and younger brother. Thomason said. My brother and father were executed in the mines. Ellie said. Yes, when they first arrived, we believed they were good. But when they saw that they can get some rocks and gems, they started to make all of us work. I also lost my best friend in the mines. Thomason said. So, when do we kill some Listons? Roger asked. Thomason commented, these weapons came just in time for our ambush. We are expecting some Listons moving by this area maybe in an hour or so. A scout ran towards them and told them the Listons were coming and will be there in over an hour. They are coming in lines from this direction. The scout motioned his hand to an area along the river. Thomason ordered his men to occupy positions on both sides of the river. He told Andrew, we will make them cross the river and they will fire at them from the other side. Sure enough, in just over an hour, a 4-man Liston patrol arrived in almost a straight line, then another. There were 4 lines composed of 16 men total. 2 men with better-looking uniforms were walking between the second and third line. Andrew and his team were hugging the ground. Andrew was looking at Ellie and whispered, Olive, make sure you jam the Liston weapons. I don't want any human casualty. On a signal from Thomason, the rebels started to fire from the back of the line. 3 Listons were immediately killed. The Listons ran to the other side of the river where the other group started shooting. Andrew, Ellie, and Roger ran with their swords and hacked 3 Listons to death. Ellie and Roger were particularly violent as they hacked their first Liston and immediately were poised to kill the other. But Thomason's men beat them to it with arrow shots. When the 2 Listons who got shot with arrows started to fall, Roger and Ellie were already hacking at them that their heads almost separated from their bodies before they even hit the ground. They realized that the Liston tissues were softer than human tissues and their bones were bigger but less rigid. Roger looked at Andrew, it was like cutting fish meat. Thomason was obviously impressed by their bravery. Thomason, you ran and attacked the Listons with only your swords and shields without fear that they will shoot you down. That is one of the most reckless show of bravery I have seen. That was for my brother. I needed one more for my father but your archers beat me to it. Ellie said. The rebels were patting their backs while some hugged Roger and Andrew. I am sorry that you were disappointed but today was a good day. None of us were killed. Let's go back to our village. Thomason said. After a few minutes walking into the woods, they heard a humming and then saw explosions in the trees. Andrew saw one of the small attack ships from the Liston military ship he saw earlier in space. They all ran for cover as some of the men fired their Liston weapons at the enemy ship. Then they saw the ship catch fire, went straight up, and crashed in a large explosion. The Macs tell me they are around here tagging the rebels and some are in the village tagging the others as well. Gadden whispered. Then they saw 4 more ships poised to strafe their positions. Suddenly the ships shifted direction and headed back to base. That's not good. They will be sending bigger ordnance over here or at the village, Andrew whispered to Roger. Olive, make sure none of the bombs or missiles reach us. Create some mechanical problem or whatever. Just make sure they explode far from humans. Andrew said. Sure enough, they saw a missile coming from the sky and they saw the missile veer to the left, then went straight up until it exploded several miles above. Then another missile went to the right and continued into the ocean where it exploded. Another missile exploded before even reaching their area. The Listons on the ship must be going nuts figuring out what's happening to their missiles. Gadden said. None of Thomason's men realized what has just transpired in the air above them. They spent the best of the hour walking towards the village. Thomason introduced Andrew to the rebel team leaders and they told the story of the ambush. They were particularly impressed with Ellie and Roger, who fought the Listons rushing and attacking with their swords and their almost perfect fighting moves. They spent the early evening listening to the rebel exploits and experiences under Liston oppression. They found out that the Listons arrived more than 3 years ago to their planet Tricus, meaning world. Then they started preaching their beliefs. The locals found the beliefs friendly enough as far as their local beliefs are concerned. When they discovered the metals, they requested people to help them, which some people did. But then they got greedy when they saw there were plenty to mine. They started to force people to work, then slowly enslaving the whole planet. They learned that there were 2 kingdoms that ruled the planet and all of the royal family members were brought to the Liston planets as slaves. An hour later, Olive communicated to Andrew through his implant that several dozen Listons have started to move up to their mountain camp. Andrew walked up to Thomason and said that he believed they would be attacking that night because he overheard them talking about an attack by ground troops. Thomason took Andrew's warning seriously and they all deployed outward and kept ambush positions. Sure enough, one of Thomason's scouts came running and told them the Listons will be in the area in an hour. They were coming to the village in 6 columns of 16 men each. Andrew's group were told to go to the leftmost flank and Andrew found 30 rebels with him. 5 had Liston guns, the others had swords, shields, and spears. They waited in ambush and when a firefight started on their right they saw the column they were supposed to ambush move forward and trying to outflank the rebels on the right. Andrew and his group attacked their tail. As usual, Olive jammed their weapons. The fight was bloody for the Listons, who were all mostly hacked and speared to death. The Liston weapons the rebels had were only able to kill 5 of the 16. Olive was giving battlefield intel to Andrew, Ellie, and Roger. Gadden got telepathic info from the Macs. Olive told Andrew that a column was moving to their left to support the one in the firefight. Andrew told them to rush downhill and ambush the Listons from the right. Again, the 16 were all killed mostly by the swords and spears. After killing their second group, Andrew's team moved upwards. Andrew let Ellie, Roger, and Gadden fall behind and then he fell behind. Olive beamed them back to the ship. They all looked extremely dirty even after the chameleon device was turned off, so Andrew told them to freshen up before they discuss anything. They were all beamed back to their ships, to their personal quarters. Andrew took time scrubbing himself clean. Then he got into his regular blues and went out of his stateroom. Olive told him the men are in the mission room waiting. After the usual salute to the senior officer, they resumed their lively talk. Aren't we all happy today? What could be the reason for this jubilee? Andrew asked and looked at Gadden. Well, Andrew, the men were sharing stories of how they fought with swords and arrows. Olive showed a clip of Ellie and Roger in the attack and they were laughing at the 2 for being overly vicious. Sir, we can stage a human rebellion against the Listons where the rebels will overwhelm the Liston positions. The Marines are pretty adept at swordplay. The bows and arrows take a little learning because they are so crude. The idea is the populace can drive them all out of the planet. The only problem is that these medieval people will spare no one. Roger said. Let's say we instigate this mass rebellion and all the Listons are killed. What do we do with the human population? Andrew asked. Sir, they already saw the future technologies from the enemy. How would it be different if they saw human technology? Ellie said. Why then do we have to stage a rebellion? We can just kill all the Listons right now if we wanted. Andrew noted. Roger countered, it will make the humans feel that justice has been done. Then we can just leave without them knowing about it and show up later with the people we rescued from the Liston home world. Or we can just beam the people back and just leave without showing ourselves. Andrew realized Roger has his mind set at making the events more dramatic. It is not because all of the people here want to fight with swords and spears and bows and arrows? Andrew quipped. I sense that may be an extremely small part of it but negligible. Gadden said. Okay, just a little tiny bit. Ellie said as she motioned with her fingers. She got a cheer from people in the room. Olive, how are they deployed? Andrew asked. Olive showed 3D map with lights. The lights show how the Listons are deployed on the ground. There are only 25,516 of them holding more than 2 million people hostage. Roger was quick. We can deploy in teams, 20 teams of 5 people under Captain Pollard, 10 teams will infiltrate the prison camp and 10 more teams waiting outside ready to attack when the rebellion starts. Our group will bring 20 more teams of 5 to join Thomason while we beam 20 more teams inside the military camp. 30 groups of 5 will infiltrate the mines under Captain Kotson with 20 more hidden outside to help when the fighting starts. We can deploy several more teams scattered in the villages to remove the Liston guards and outposts. Ellie added, they all have the telecom implants and would still be using the chameleon devices. We still need to use the language translators. Olive and all the ships will make sure the Listons do not kill any humans on the ground with any of their weapons. I think we should also disable the Liston weapons at the hands of the humans as well so they know that none of the Liston weapons are working for some reason common to the Listons and the human-held weapons. This consistency will be easier to explain or believe than otherwise. Gadden noted. 40 Listons to one of us. A pretty one-sided fight if you ask me. Andrew said. Tough luck I guess. Roger said. Andrew stood. Okay, let's do it. We deploy tonight so the humans on the ground will see us wake up. Olive, please disable all Liston weapons including those held by humans. I also want drones all over the battle areas including inside the mines. This is going to be really medieval. I like to have dinner now. Are you guys joining me? The team under Captain Pollard were beamed inside the prison camp with some members just outside the walls. The team under Captain Kotson were deployed around the mines and some were beamed inside the mines. Andrew and his teams deployed near the river and slept. The next morning, they hear the scouts waking them up. Andrew introduced his new people as people who learned about the attack like he did and came to help. As usual, Thomason welcomed them and told Andrew that his information last night was timely and none of his men were killed. One of Thomason's leaders told Ellie, he was impressed last night on how she fought and realizing some of Andrew's new members were females and hoped that they can fight as well as Ellie did. Andrew told him that he got in touch with some rebels from the other side of the mountains who came to help him. Some will attack the mines, some the camp and some will attack various Liston outposts. He also told them that the Liston guns were not working anymore because of reasons he does not know. He said some people tried using their guns but did not work so they left them behind. Thomason tried to operate one Liston gun and it would not fire. Thomason was not unhappy but rather felt comfortable. He said, now we can fight on our terms. So, Andrew, when did your friends say they will attack? This early afternoon when all the Listons are eating. The attack on the mines will signal the start. We were told to attack the military camp. Some of their people are already inside and when they start, they will open the gates and that will be our signal for us to attack. I must say you appear to be a good leader. Thomason said. It was not my idea. I am just relaying to you what they told me. Andrew said. We will join the attack on the main camp with all of your men. Let's all go now straight to their camp. Thomason said. Thomason told his leaders to get the people from the village and join outside the camp. It was a 3-hour walk to just outside the camp, which was a few miles from the mines. They all positioned themselves hidden behind the trees waiting for the Listons to start their lunch. Andrew estimated that they were 1,100 strong while the camp had 9,820 Listons. He is relying on his 10 teams to open the gates. Just after noontime, Andrew received word from his teams inside that they will be opening the gates. Andrew's men were ready and when they saw the gates move, they rushed shouting with their swords, shields, and spears. Thomason was caught off guard but he saw the gates move and he ordered his men to rush in shouting. The Listons were all caught off guard. Not even the guards can respond as the 10 teams scattered to eliminate them. The Marines were spectacular fighting with swords and spears. The Listons just fell before them as they rushed in. Ellie and Roger moved so fast that they killed 10 Listons before they crossed the courtyard to enter the buildings. The Marines were equally fast and they entered the building a step ahead of Ellie and Roger. Their moves were measured and they knew where to position themselves. They found the Listons in the mess hall trying to defend their positions with knives. The speed of the Marines did not change and they overwhelmed the Listons in a few minutes. The Listons were not used to fighting with knives and whatever else they can find. Their training was in the use of their firearms and not hand-to-hand combat. They still had a few minutes to learn and they did try to fight, but their minds were not trained to think in fighting this way. Thomason's group were rushing from behind Andrew's group, which went straight and then scattered around to look for Listons. And they found them everywhere. There was fighting everywhere, and in less than an hour, all the Listons were dead or dying from their wounds. Some Marines held Listons and escorted them to the courtyard. When Thomason saw this, he quickly stepped in to kill them. When he did this, his men cheered a victory cheer. Andrew received word that the mines and prison camp have been liberated. The scattered Listons are being dealt with, but the cleanup will take longer. The ship in orbit tried to launch a nuclear missile, but Olive diverted it into space, directing it to the sun. The ship tried to launch its attack ships, but their engines exploded from inside. The ship just watched, since they cannot go down to the ground. None of their transport ships were working. Thomason exclaimed, "Andrew son, your friends fight very well. I have not seen those fighting techniques, using your arms and legs like swords and spears. You all fought with bravery and with extreme tenacity." Even Thomason's rebel leaders praised Ellie, Roger, and their friends for killing Listons so quickly. Unnoticed, the teams headed for the forest in small groups to disappear. Andrew told Thomason that he will go to the prison camp. Thomason was in a state of euphoria and did not notice anything odd. Within an hour, Andrew and all his men were gone. Captain Pollard pretended to chase Listons in the forest, and all his men were gone in less than an hour. Captain Kotson also pretended to chase some Listons, while some of his men remained inside the mines where they were beamed out. Andrew ordered the cleanup crews to return to the ships, finished or not. When Andrew got back to his ship, Olive told him the Liston ship has left orbit 5 minutes ago. All the team members have returned and have gone to clean themselves up. Andrew knew exactly what to do. He went to take a shower. In a few minutes he found himself in the mess hall, crowded like the time before their mission began. This time they were all hungry and a lot noisier. Ellie, Gadden, and Roger walked into the mess hall and got some chairs to sit beside Andrew. "I want to know, when do we leave for the Liston home world?" "Any word from Axel?" Andrew asked. "None, Andrew," Gadden said. "The medic teams want to beam down, cloaked, and inoculate the humans, keep them healthy. A lot of them are really malnourished, some very sick and almost dying, especially the prisoners," Ellie said. Andrew nodded. "Let's leave one ship with half of the medical teams. Leave just enough Inkeys, Max and Norsets to nosy around and see what's up. Leave Captain Kotson to develop our contact with Thomason, but only if needed. No other contact, please." Roger noted. "We can leave tonight. It's more than 3 days from here. By tomorrow we can expect to hear from Axel." Sure enough, the next day Axel appeared before Andrew in his bridge. "Sir, the Listons have one planet with 3 nations. Total planet populations at 12 billion Listons. The biggest nation has 7 billion Listons and is the one that had the humans brought in as slaves. They have 5 military ships and 10 transport ships. My ship counted 122,030 humans brought in as slaves. We have tagged a third of them, and we will probably be finished in 2 more days or by the time you arrive here. Good work, Axe. How do you think this thing can play out?" Andrew asked. Captain Ono appeared as well and said, "Sir, I believe an approach should make use of their religious fanaticism." Ellie and Roger and Gadden beamed themselves beside Andrew. "Captain, what sort of religious approach?" Ellie asked. "As crazy as it may sound, we were thinking of appearing before them as their god in their churches at the same time and telling them that first they made a mistake in taking the humans, so we, the gods, will now remove their slaves and send them back to where they got them. They will see the humans disappear. Second, we tell them that until the time that they can be trusted with treating all creatures in the universe equally, they cannot leave the planet and explore." Axel said. "That crazy idea is something only General Man can come out with." Roger said. "Thank you, Roger. I appreciate that. I think it's a good idea," Andrew said. "And if they still persist to go into space and explore?" Ellie asked. "We blow their ship up," Ono replied. "I like it. Direct to the point, and they may in fact turn their fanaticism to good use," Roger said. "While in the church, some people will disagree. And when they do, we will beam these people out into space, let them see they're in space and beam them back again to show the power of their god," Andrew added. "Then we can blow some of the ship's weapons and transport these ships on dry land from space, but leave the transport ship in orbit," Ellie said. "I was looking at their religion book, and part of it teaches equality and justice, kindness and forgiveness," Ono said. "We can devise a punishment for those who have broken the rules. Change their daily prayer in one of equality, justice and so on," Axel added. "We can beam their leaders into the churches and admonish them and tell them to be good boys and girls. We can admonish their priests as well. Tell them to follow the book properly and not because it suits them to do so. Andrew said. Sounds like a good plan to me. If we do not change their mindset, they will continue to teach this crap all over the universe. Roger said. Do you have historical information about their religion, Axel? Ellie asked. The Norsets are getting into their libraries and archives right now. Axel said. Okay, good work guys. We will see you in 2 days. Report anything new please. Andrew said. When Andrew's armada arrived near Liston, Axel and Ono beamed into his bridge. Ellie, Gadden, and Roger arrived as well. So what's new? Andrew asked. We will be done tagging within the hour. We also planted small charges on the ship's weapons from inside. We also identified their leaders and they are all tagged. Axel said. I believe we should just put all the humans to sleep. Transport them all back while asleep then beam them to the ground. Like they wake up from a bad dream. Ellie said. In the meantime our medics will make sure they are well and strong. Roger added. How will you put them to sleep when they beam in? Andrew asked. Sir, we beam them in dark rooms filled with sleeping gas. So they will not recognize anything but darkness. Then we move them out to their sleeping quarters. We will then continuously administer the sleeping agent by inoculation. Ellie said. You have to decide who will pretend to be their god. Ono said. Axel added, actually, we can also have several of us appear as their god with the same image. We will program the chameleon devices to show the same image but different people will pretend to be the god. How many gods do we need? Andrew asked. Hundreds. They have thousands of churches but we can appear in the bigger ones. Probably 400 of our people. Ono said. I like to be one of those pretend gods. Roger said. 400. Okay Olive make a list. Count me in. Andrew said. I want to pretend god too. Ellie said. I am really good at this. So I'm in. Gadden said. Ono and I have to monitor everybody else. We have come out with a script but you can ad-lib a little depending on your situation. But the main points should be made. Olive, I believe I sent you the script before I left. Please have them distributed among the pretend gods. Please discuss the script. Olive show it on the screen. Andrew said. Axel discussed the script point by point. There must be a show of power. The leaders will be beamed into the church and scolded. The priest will be scolded. The humans will vanish group by group. The ship weapons explode, the ships are then beamed down to the ground. The transport ships are blown up. Then the ideology must be changed. The idea of equality, justice, forgiveness and care for the other person or alien will be made into a prayer that they must do every day. They cannot travel until the pretend god appears again after 20 years. We have uploaded the target churches to all the ships. These are the top 400 largest churches. The designated pretenders must study the churches using the videos we have placed at their altar. The image must appear hovering at their altar and move around a bit. If you see somebody cough or do something the pretenders must react to make it appear that the pretend god sees the cough and reacts to it. Ono added. I have more than 10,000 volunteers Andrew. Olive said. Settle it by lottery. So we must practice this pretend god thing to make it believable. Ellie said. Yes, it's not all showbiz but hard work as well. Roger commented. After all this pretend god, I want all the ship personnel to vote on the best pretend god performance. The winner will get a trophy and a box of fine brandy. Andrew said. All the pretend gods must look the same. Axel noted. So the performance is what matters because we would all look the same. Ellie said. I think I would win. Andrew said. I believe that you should exclude yourself, sir, because you should have the final say on the best performance. Ellie said. Nice try Ellie. The biggest vote will decide the winner. I want in on the pretend god thing. Actually she's right boss. In fact, you and Axel and Ono should decide on the top 10 performances and the ship's vote on the top 10. It would not be expedient to have all our people look at 400 or so performances. There should be the best 10, and these are the only ones they judge on. Roger said. Okay, but I will not be a kind judge. And Gadden, your job is to make sure the humans are well taken care of. Gadden showed some disappointment but he nodded, nonetheless. After identifying who the final list of pretend gods was, they were assigned their churches. They studied the churches and the churchgoers. Each of the pretend gods had to follow the script but deliver the best performance. They can have a team to support them with their performance and special effects. After 2 days all systems were all go. The chameleons showed all the same faces and outfits as the Listons expect their god to be. All the scripts have been memorized, all possible power shows were practiced. There was the usual spying on the other's performance so they had to do the performance in their own quarters. Their team members who handled the special effects will only upload their routines when the performance started so nobody can see them practice or work on effects. Axel and Ono beamed into Andrew's bridge. Andrew nodded at the two. Let's get the show going. Axel told Olive for a public address hologram to all performers. The performance will proceed in 15 minutes. Please be at your post and make sure all your monitors and holograms are working. Olive lined up 402 small holo monitors suspended around the bridge so the three judges can see each performer. At the moment, all they see were altars of the different churches. The three put on their earpieces and prepared their pointers so they can choose what to listen to. Peace be to all of you, the Liston god Sarano, a pretend god in one of the screens said, as did 401 others. Some of the performers were really bad, so Andrew just put a cross on the bottom of the screen with his pen to signify his no vote. 3 crosses from Axel, Ono and Andrew meant the performer is out. A yes vote meant no cross. He budgeted his time well and based on Olive's advice that he never should stay more than 5 seconds in one screen. The script was long, more than 40 minutes, and midway, the Listons were terrified, especially when the leaders suddenly appeared and their priests lifted into the air, beamed into space, and admonished. 5 minutes before the end of the script, Andrew was on his second pass on about 30 remaining performers. By the end of the script, the Listons were praying the new prayer the pretend god made them memorize. The Listons they beamed in and those they beamed out to space and back were all shaking in fear. As soon as the pretend gods beamed out, Andrew was down to the best 10 performers. When he compared Ono's choice, they roughly overlap on 8 while Axel's overlap with his in only 3. They were forced to vote on each one again to come out with the top 10. The final voting was done at the mess halls and the crew voted using their personal tablets. As soon as his last vote was done, Andrew went down to the holding room to look at the humans. They were still beaming them in constantly. Once asleep, they were carried by the crew over to the holding area. The medic staff then looked at them to see if they needed medical help aside from the usual shots. Gadden was there to meet Andrew. Andrew saw the humans in sorry state. When Dr. Chue saw him, he waved him over to where he was looking at a human lying on a table. Chue started, "Andrew, look at this. We ran DNA and cellular analysis on some of the humans and they pretty much have the same characteristics. They are all a bit different from humans from Earth. Their telomeres are longer for their age and their mitochondrial activity is 30% more than in Earth humans with certain activity stimuli. There are traces of genes that do not fit the parents, like the genes came from one or more persons." "They were re-engineered?" Andrew asked. Ellie appeared. "Sir, have you heard, the humans have a different makeup. The doctor here is just about to tell me why. Judging from the level of composition of the genes, I believe the same people who changed the max physiology were the ones who did this. They seem to be a bit stronger and their cellular processes are slightly better at converting the same amount of sugar to slightly more ATP than regular Earth humans." Ellie added. "Or Earth humans have lost this efficiency and gene makeup over the millennia." Andrew said. "That could be true. In the end, what we have here maybe are primal quality humans like the Neanderthals with better bodies. Maybe we were better before like they are now." Ellie added, "It could be that the people who got the max got this species as well. And since then they have not been diluted with other humans. These may be pure Neanderthal people. They could also be smarter judging from the larger brain sizes. There's a high probability they are smarter than your average Joe since their general tissues developed better. They are also very peaceful, judging from the way they were conquered." Chue added. "I think that's why their fighters did not appear aggressively aggressive." Andrew said. "They probably just lack training." Ellie countered. "That means we would need more sleeping gas to keep them asleep for the next 3 days. When do you think we will beam all of the humans, Andrew?" Chue asked. Andrew looked at Ellie. "Maybe 10 to 12 hours. Ellie said. "The delay is in the processing, making them sleep and moving them about." Andrew noted. "Sir, we are deploying 4 probes to cover the planet below. I recommend that a ship should leave as soon as they get their allocation of refugees. This way we do not unnecessarily make the humans sleep longer than they should." Roger said. "That's logical. You have a go on that plan. Tell Olive to schedule a deployment schedule of 2 ships at a time. My ship and Ellie's would be the last to leave." "Thank you, sir," Roger said and saluted. "Ellie, Dr. Chue, did you have any intel on who the royalty are?" Andrew asked. "No, sir. We do not talk to them, remember? Gadden, why don't you ask a Mac to hold each of them and gather their experiences? Maybe we could get lucky." Andrew said. "Yes, Andrew." The next night Gadden came over the bridge. "Andrew, we have identified the 2 kings and the royal families. Based on their experiences before being enslaved, they seem to be simple and very peaceful kingdoms. Trading with each other. Both kingdoms were good to the aliens, but their kindness were returned with enslavement. They fought, but since they are not warring kingdoms and the Listons had better weapons, they were enslaved easily. So the best thing really is to leave them alone without engaging or letting them know we exist. Andrew said. We have enough information on them. I had thousands of Macs gather intel, and you know how it is, an hour with the subject means several years of information already. The ships have the intel already. Gadden added. Chue beamed over to Andrew's bridge. Chue started, Andrew, the humans are becoming well and strong. As you know, babies grow more when they are asleep. It seems to be true to these humans as well. By the end of this day, none of them would need the shots we are giving them to make them stronger and immunize them from diseases. In fact, we are drawing blood from most of them because they have more blood than they need. I think their blood should be studied and would be useful down the road. Good. That is so amazing, Doctor. It is. It is so fascinating to see humans could be like them. They are our purest and strongest ancestors. So we must preserve them as we preserve our most cherished treasures. I will deploy 2 more probes to make sure nobody bothers them. They arrived at the planet and beamed down all their sleeping humans to the planet. Andrew's team beamed to the bridge. Captain Kotson reported that they went down cloaked and just observed Thomason and his people. He reported that Thomason has just sealed the mines with Earth after they put all the Listons and their equipment inside. I believe our job here is done. We will just leave the 2 additional probes as the General wanted and we should be on our way. Ellie said. I feel good our ancestors never knew what really happened and we did not have to make contact and reveal our true selves. Roger said. I feel good as well, Roger. By the way, who won the contest? Andrew asked. Olive answered, an Inky hacker won. It was a very close contest between him and another Inky. He won by only 3 votes. Good for him. I never knew they are also good actors. Andrew said. I guess our people are watching too many Earth movies. Ellie said. A Marinti named Baskar is asking permission to talk to you. Olive said. Andrew smiled. Speaking of good actors, Baskar probably is the best. Let him through. Baskar appeared as a hologram. Greetings, Andrew. It's been a long time. It's good to see you again. Yes, Baskar, we have our way of bumping into each other. Remember the Marintis you dumped on a planet? The ones that tried to invade the Furlets? Yes, you were to bring them back home. Yes, I was, but when we got there, there were no Marinti to be found except for one that fell into a hole and got stuck for days. The place looked like all the Marintis slowly left. There were signs of large movements, then they were gone. Like they voluntarily boarded a ship and left. And they are nowhere to be found in your planets? Nowhere to be found. I brought the remaining Marinti and he is now with the Inkies. He is a little crazy and erratic. And you like me to take a look at this? These are highly trained military Marintis. They do not just leave a place unless their leaders agree. And nobody just helps these people unless they will use their skills for something else. I see your point and I promise to look at it. That is so strange. How can millions of warriors get lost? Ellie asked.